To our first topic here, NWPS. It's our new website, and that stands for National Water Prediction Service. So before we do any more with that new website, let's talk about the old. Hopefully most of you are familiar with our old AHIPS webpage with all the forecast dots that you would click on to get your river forecast. The main portal for that webpage was water.weather.gov, and it had functions that we used for near real-time river data and forecast, showed us probability of exceedance data, static FEM libraries were available, quantitative precipitation estimates were there, and then it had data downloads for us. So our old AHIPS webpage served us well for many years, but it is time to move on and to upgrade to a more modern interface and update that infrastructure so we can do more things with our hydro data. Separate from AHIPS for the last 5 to 10 years, we've had the NOAA Office of Water Prediction, or OWP, webpage. And that URL is water.noaa.gov. But we've had that separate website as the home for the National Water Model. And so you would go there to get an interactive map for National Water Model access, and also to use the image viewer for National Water Model output. It also had general information about the National Water Center, the National Water Model, and some flood inundation mapping development info as well. So the new web page combines the old AHIPS plus that OWP page into one interface under NWPS. And NWPS did go live at the end of March successfully here. So this is the URL for it, water.noaa.gov. And we're going to go ahead and switch on over to that web page for the demo. Okay, so hopefully you all are seeing a nice map here of all of our river forecast points. When you open that web page, you have a nice updated interactive map with your typical zooming functions and clicking functions on those dots as you would any updated page this century. And we also have your typical search functions in the upper left corner. In addition to searching for, say, a city, you can also search for things like states. You could type in, you wanted to search for the state of Kentucky and click on that. And it would zoom into the state of Kentucky with all those river points more visible to you. So one nice thing about this new web page is any views that you select that you like and you would like to save for further use or to embed in your own web page, the URL up here acts as a bookmark for this particular view, and so you can copy and paste that into your own web pages or under your own bookmarks. So that's really nice to have. Then if we go to the right-hand display panel here, you'll see several functions on this panel. The first one is the map background function, and so you can change backgrounds to your typical suite of GIS backgrounds, topographic, satellite, dark, light. We'll go ahead and switch to dark for display purposes here. And then we have a list of layers that you can add to the map and manipulate on the map. And so those layers are the river gauge layer, the hazards layer, the precipitation estimate layer, the National Water Model layer, the flood inundation layer, snow analysis, and then administrative boundaries. So just having a look at each of these layers, first the river gauge. This is where you're going to find all the information for your observations and forecasts. You can click on these check boxes to turn on and off those dots and squares on the map for either observations or forecast. If you'd like to turn on or off all of the observations, you can click on the title at the top of the column and turn off and on all the observations. So it's a nice way to display our river data. It's a little bit different way to look at things, The blue dots that you see on the map are river gauge locations that do not have a forecast, just observation data. The green dots that you see on the map are locations where we have observations and forecasts during times of flood. So not every day, but during times of flood, you'll find a forecast there. And then the locations that have a dot and a square have daily forecast information there. And those dots and squares do mean something. They are color coded. So if you're looking at, for instance, this gauge up here, the Wabash River at Riverton, Indiana, the dot is showing yellow, so that means the current observation is in action stage. And then the square is the forecast. So it is forecast to go into minor flood stage. So just at a quick glance here, you can get a real good perspective over the area, which river gauges are in flood or aren't in flood, and what the forecast for those would be. So back to the right-hand panel over here, you can also limit your map by boundary. And so right now I've got the state of Kentucky turned on here. There are other boundaries available, including county boundaries, state boundaries, river forecast area boundaries. But if you click on this button, it turns off everything that's not in the state of Kentucky. Then you've also got one more option down here, which is only display partner FIM gauges. And if you turn this button on, then you'll only see the points where a partner FIM is available. These are our detailed partner FIM, our old AHIPS FIM that we like to call them. And you can see in Kentucky, there's just two, one in Frankfort and one down in Hopkinsville. Okay, and then if we open the next layer, the hazards layer, this is exactly how it sounds. This is all National Weather Service hazards. When you click all, and we'll zoom out here because there's thankfully nothing going on in Kentucky. But out west, you can see there are some flood warnings in effect for Missouri. This would also show severe warnings or winter storm warnings under the all category. And then if you wanted to limit to just hydrologic hazards, you can click the hydrologic button. And then if you don't want to display any hazards, you can, of course, click that off, do not display. You can change the opacity for the layer, making it darker or lighter, depending on your map preference and what you want to see. But hopefully that gives you a quick overview of our hazards layer there. The next one is precipitation estimate layer, and you have to click enabled to turn this one on. Then if you click the arrow to the left there, you have some options. You have actually a lot of options for precipitation estimate. You can look at precipitation, year, month, day. You've got specific year, month, and day selectors, drop-down menus that you can choose. And then you have where you can select a drop-down menu to see the last few hours all the way up to the last 20 days of accumulated precipitation. One nice thing about this map display also is you can click on this checkbox up here to display estimated precipitation on hover, and then go over to your map, and you can see that the precipitation values are changing as I mouse over the precipitation image there. And if you scroll down a little bit more in the precipitation estimate area, it shows you can look at, we've got the observed precipitation on, but you can also look at normal precipitation for the time period, departure from normal, and percent of normal. Again, using opacity to make the map display how you would like it. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and turn this layer off so we can have a look at the next one. The next one is the National Water Model layer. This is a newer layer that some of you may not be as familiar with, because again, that was not on the old AHIPS website, and it is on the new NWPS website. So to turn this layer on, just click the arrow to see your options, and you want to click the enabled checkbox under Stream Reach. You'll get a message here to read about the National Water Model layer, so read that through and then close. And you'll see some of your streams have shown up in blue here, and those blue streams are where we have a National Water Model forecast. Now, there is quite a dense network of National Water Model forecasts available, and as you zoom in, you'll see more blue streams become available to you. So there's quite a bit to look at with the National Water Model in respects to that. So I would encourage you to play around with this and zoom into those county levels to see what all is available in your area from the National Water Model. But to see a National Water Model forecast, you just click on the blue stream reach. It highlights that little reach in yellow there on the map, and it gives you a pop-up on the right-hand side. And it's going to take a minute to think about it and load our forecast. But it then pops up a National Water Model forecast for us for this particular reach of the river. And so what you're seeing here, usually we have actually a little orange bar here that gives you an observed analysis, which is an estimate on the river from the National Water Model, and then the pink and purple lines show you the forecast from the National Water Model. So I encourage you to get in there and play around with that and see what forecasts you would have available for your area of responsibility. If you want to get rid of that National Water Model forecast pop-up, then you just click the X at the top here, and you can see the labels again on the layers. So under the National Water Model layer, you can also turn on our National Soil Moisture Analysis and then the National Stream Analysis Anomaly layers. I'll go ahead and turn this layer off for now and move on to the flood inundation layer. Again, you have to click enabled for this to show up. You'll get the warning that it's experimental with some information, and you read through that and then close. Before the flood inundation layer, you have a number of options, and there will be more as we get into our flood inundation era when we start receiving flood inundation maps from the Water Center this October. Right now, there's not a whole lot other than our two points at Frankfort and Hopkinsville, but we're going to zoom way out here so you can see some flood inundation layers. There are areas up in the Northeast US and then down in Texas that are currently receiving flood inundation services from the National Water Center. So we're going to zoom into those. You can see the rivers highlighted and color-coded by forecast flood levels. And as we zoom in to the river a little bit further, you see those colors change to a solid blue. And that is your flood inundation layer showing up. So that's where the projected flood waters will be along that river. And so again, you can zoom in real close to see different things. You can turn on your satellite view to have a look at different locations that you might be interested in. And you can change your opacity for the flood layer to see things kind of under that inundation layer. So come October of this year, this section will be much more exciting for Kentucky and Indiana. All right, the last two layers that we have available are the National Snow Analysis, which includes snow depth and snow water equivalent. We don't have much of that in our area right now, so I won't turn that on. And then we have administrative boundaries, and that includes things like your river forecast areas, your state boundaries, your weather forecast office areas of responsibility, and even counties. And so each of these areas you can turn on and off and then change the opacity to your liking. Okay, so then we're gonna go back up to the top here and head back up to Kentucky. And we're gonna zoom into Frankfort. And when we click on the Frankfort point there, you can see a hydrograph pulls up. So this hydrograph is kind of cool. It's an interactive hydrograph where you can just scroll along and see your observations showing up there with the timestamp as you hover along the line. And then as you get onto your forecast side, the purple line, it does the same, where you can see your forecast levels and flows as well as the timestamp. Scroll down a little bit more, you can do some customization to your hydrograph here. You can change the time window on this timeline here by moving the bar back and forth. And then you can make that bar longer to show more time or skinnier to show less time on your hydrograph. There are some default zooms that you can zoom to. You can zoom to 1 day of hydrograph data. You can zoom to 7 days of hydrograph data, or all 30 days of hydrograph data. So a number of customizations you can do there to look at the hydro data. And then you can also turn on your flood scale categories so you can see where the current observations and forecast stack up to our flood levels. If you scroll down the panel here, you have basic information about flood categories and the associated stages for each. And then you have a list of items that are included on the hydrograph up here. So if you click on these individual items, that turns on and off your observations if you want to do some manipulations and just look at different traces. And then scrolling down, you just have some basic gauge information, including which RFC serves this point, which weather forecast office serves this point, and some USGS links. But furthermore, if you go up to the top again on the full information link, if you click that, then you'll be headed to a separate web page, which is just for that particular point. And this is the equivalent to the individual gauge pages on the old AHIPs. So it's got basically the same information, just with some new functionality and some added features. So again, you have your interactive hydrograph there, and you can actually switch tabs here from official forecasts and click the National Water Model tab, read the disclaimer, and see the National Water Model forecast there appear on the hydrograph, and you can manipulate that the same way you would the official forecast. Then just scrolling down this web page, again, you have flood categories and your layers of the hydrograph right below. You have your flood impact statements here on the left-hand side. The top 3 show by default, but you can click show more flood impacts to see the whole list of flood impacts that we have on file. Then again, your basic gauge information on the right. Scrolling down, you'll see recent and historic crest lists, as we've always had on our AHIPS web pages. And then the gauge location map, where you can see the location of the gauge, and if there is a detailed FIM available for that particular location, you can activate it by clicking the Activate FIM Gauge button. And then you can simply hover over these levels on the gauge to see the different inundation that would result at each level. And if you want to get out of that, you can deactivate the FIM map, and it shrinks back to its previous state. And you can move on down the individual page again to see more sections. We have the vertical datum table, which gives the vertical datum type, and then the flood categories above mean sea level pressure in reference to that datum. And then you have a gallery of photos that can be viewed that are at the site there. Scrolling down further, we have probability information, including a weekly chance of exceeding different levels for this point, conditional and historical simulations for this point, and then our HEFS 10-day river ensemble probabilities are also here. So a lot of good information contained on these individual pages. And the last part of the pages include some more information about river ensembles, as well as some specific links and useful hydro resources for you. So that is the end of the demo there. In addition to our new web page, we do have the new application program interface, or the API data services, to go with it. And that replaces our old XML and shapefile data download that we had on the old web pages. So if you're a programmer out there and you used those features previously, we have these new API data services that you can dive into and use them in your program or on your website, or however you digest those. And the website to find more information about the API is listed here. It's also available on the NWPS website itself. You can get to it there. We do encourage NWPS feedback. It's always welcome. You can email the NWPS webmaster to give feedback on the website at any time. They've been really good with trying to incorporate as many updates as they can and make NWPS functional and great for everyone. And then if you have local questions and inquiries, you can always see me. Just email me or chat me, and we can help you find whatever you need to find and get the functionality you need out of the new NWPS website.